Welcome to Part the System, and today I'm with Yvette Audet. How are you, Yvette?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, going very well, thank you, after the long weekend.
Indeed.
So a little bit about you. Sport has been integral to Yvette's life. She was heavily involved in athletics and netball growing up and did her first degree in sports science, management, and psychology, a post degree in community management, and has a life coaching, swim teaching, and fitness qualifications. Now, Yvette has been in the sport and aquatic sector for about 3 decades, and through her various roles in profit and non-for-profit sectors, she has helped plan programs and events and facilities to help get communities active through sport and recreation. Now, graced with motherhood, from 2005, she remained in sport, and her children have both still been involved in sport. The Sporting Mum blog is based around her weekend sport adventures, sporting family life, and is an informal way to apply her sports psychology and management knowledge. The articles relate life skills and messages that can get from being involved in sport, life lessons we learn through sport. It's uncanny how sport can mirror life.
It does. I think when you say 3 decades, it makes me feel really old. Or how can I do that when I'm only 35?
Exactly. Well, hopefully we'll dig into a little bit of that experience as we progress the chat of it. But yeah, really pleased to welcome you today, and we'll get straight into it. So, what does this thing called well-being mean to you?
I think for me personally, it means balance for me. Somebody once asked, "What's your perfect day?" And I said, for me to be busy and ticking off things. But in saying that, obviously a balance between physical, mental, and spiritual worlds. And there's been things that have happened in my life, and I realize that you need to cherish every moment, and you need to make the
Mm,
most of every moment as well. So although my ethic has been all my life to, you have to get to anywhere through work or personal life through hard work, there's
mm.
also time that you need to make sure that you're spending time with your family, make sure that you're spending time for yourself, and that's so important.
Yeah, it's that dichotomy, isn't it, in terms of like doing and ticking things off the list, as you say, but enjoying the moment as well.
Yes, yeah. And I did Franklin Covey, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective. I was a facilitator, and he said very rarely do people on their deathbed think about, I should have worked longer. It's always been about their relationships.
Sorry, so that book was one of the big books for me in terms of like my personal development journey. But did you say that you were on a course with Stephen Covey, or
No, I ran it for
ah,
PCYC for like about 5 years. Going to
fantastic.
class, yeah,
Yeah,
teaching other
yeah,
people.
yeah. It's a great book, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. And what other things do you do to look after your well-being then?
I exercise every single morning. If I don't get any exercise done in the morning, I just feel blah all day. So that's the main thing. Even my husband knows that if I get too stressed, he's like, go for a run. So that's what I do. The other thing that I think that I should be doing though is meditation. So I'd love
Mm.
to get that. I think I just spoke to Raylene Hooper, and they've got a new app coming out for meditation. So I might give that a bit of a try. And I suppose the other thing is I love a good hug. So I quite often will go up to my kids and say, "Can I have a hug?" or just have a big hug. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So connection for you then's important.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, great. And we talked to a little bit about that 3 decades that you've been involved in
Yes.
aquatics and sport and rec. So, yeah, tell us a little bit about your story of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, probably more than 3 decades if you go right back to when I was little. So, yeah, sport has been a major part of my life. I started athletics when I was five years old, or just turned 5 years old, and did the heptathlon, which meant towards the end I was training pretty much 7 days a week, or competing and training 7 days a week, and netball. So I'm still friends with some of the people that I've played netball for a couple of decades. Um, I grew up in Greenacre and went to a public school, and I was like the sports captain and the role model for, not just chosen, I suppose, to be the role model. And it's funny, I was thinking back to, I remember vividly, it must have been about 13 or 14, and somebody had offered me a cigarette back in the days at school, and another girl came and goes, "Don't offer her that. She's our athlete." So it was a great experience, and a very multicultural school, and which gave me a deep understanding of the different cultures and acceptance and real integration within society.
Yeah. Did you take that cigarette, or did you?
No,
No, you
no,
didn't.
I've never had a cigarette in my life. There you go.
Wow, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've always been a bit of a role model then in terms of sport and at school and stuff. And then where did you take that when you studied for a bit as well, and then you started your career?
Yeah, so my first degree it had sports science, psychology, and management. I loved the psych part, but didn't want to become a sports psychologist, and then just fell into management really, and have been in profit, for-profit, not-for-profit, and local government positions for the last few decades, doing a lot of different things.
Yeah, yeah, cool. And this sporting mum blog that you've got, so I see it popping up all over, and uh talk about your adventures on a weekend, and some of the lessons that you learn through sport, and I, I couldn't agree more. But yeah, just share with us a little bit how it came about, and what it's all about.
Yeah, look, I think when my son was quite young, he needed speech therapy, and the teacher at school wrote a report, and in the report they said, "Oh, it's just a sports family." And I took offense to that because he was learning
Mm.
French and doing piano and well-rounded kids. And it wasn't until he was a little bit older, it was Mother's Day and it was raining, and it was like 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning. It was bucketing down rain. I was watching my son on Mother's Day, thinking there's probably other mums that are in bed, getting breakfast in bed for Mother's Day, but there's probably other mums that are out here doing the same thing. So that from then on, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to write about what happens each weekend, or what pops up during the week, and relate it back to some of my sports psych stuff, relate it back to some of the Franklin Covey stuff, and and create stories. And it's quite interesting because some people say to me, why do you do it? And I think it's quite therapeutic
Mm.
for me. And I've had people say it's what you write is fantastic, and like they enjoy the articles and the reading. So that's good.
Yeah, and I suppose it's an expression, isn't it, of you as well, and bringing it all together, and these life lessons, I suppose, through sport. Have you got any that spring to mind over the years? Anything in particular?
One of my favorite articles is Grit versus Talent, that I wrote, because after a couple of wines, my husband and I always get into a debate, because I think that there's a certain amount of genetic um, composition which makes athletes great, and he says no, it's all about resistance and determination and discipline. And I think at the end of the day, it's a blend, to some extent. So that's probably. But my mum, God bless her, she's not with us anymore, but she had a saying for everything. So it's kind of been instilled in me, that there is a moral or a saying for every little thing in life. So things
Hmm.
happen for a reason. I can roll them off.
I know it's funny, these sayings, and then where you go back to the origins of them, it's like, why do we say this, But yeah, she sounds like a great character, your mum. So yeah, and now obviously you wear a few hats, don't you? And I see in the background there you've got a beautiful, beautiful pool. Where is that one?
I think that's I think it's South Australia Leisure Centre, Aquatic Leisure Centres.
Yeah, yeah, cool. So the two roles that you're in now, you're the business development manager of Myrtha Pools. I
Mm-hmm.
thought that might be a Myrtha one behind you, and the vice president of the International Association for Sport and Leisure Facilities, and ambassador for Australia and New Zealand. So
Mm-hmm.
there's obviously two different hats there. But yeah, would love to hear a little bit more about those roles.
Yeah, so I'm started this year with Business Development Manager in Myrtha. They're an Italian company.
Yeah.
They're based across 70 countries across the world. We have a partnership with FINA, and I mean, if you see some of the pools that we've done for World Championships and Commonwealth Games and Olympic Games, we can build a pool anywhere, and they're very sustainable pools as well. We also have done remote pools, which is in line with collective leisure and your goals, because we're able to reach remote communities, and it's a real social aspect, I suppose, rather than elite swimming. But it's all about, yeah, it's like a local billabong for some of them. They also do, Myrtha also do like a 360 swim program, which is a website which has all different types of tips for swimming and learn to swim and things like that. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Excellent. And the role at Ajax.
Yeah, so I started off this as the Australian New Zealand ambassador, and like my goal is, so they're across 120 countries across the world at the moment, and I really wanted to give Australia and New Zealand a voice on the global stage, and I thought that we could do more and get more members and more people involved, and we were winning international architectural prizes for our sport and leisure facilities, and I just wanted to really showcase that and all the other talent that we have. So I've done that. And then I became the VP last November, which is very exciting. My time schedule is all over the place, considering my meetings with Italy and my meetings. I think the other day I had 5:30, 2-hour 5:30 in the morning meeting with Ajax, and then I had meetings like until about 8:30 at night with Myrtha. So it's a different lifestyle, but I'm loving it, and it's great. And we will actually, RJ Houston and I from Royal Life will be doing a webinar about the Vancouver trip that we did, and some notes from the ASCA trip in regards to the aquatic leisure centres. So watch this space.
Fantastic. Well, it's interesting how you managing your well-being when you with these time differences
Yeah.
with all these meetings. So yeah, how are you doing that?
I think, look, once again, I kind of interrupted the 5:30 in the morning one interrupted me because normally I do my physical activity in the morning, but
Yeah.
I just knew that I had to do it. So as soon as that was finished at 8 o'clock or whatever, I went for a quick walk and did a little bit of exercise. I think more so with my role with Myrtha is a lot of travel, and so it's quite hard and to do. And I'm a fair weather person, so
Yeah.
I've literally just invested in Les Mills online. So it's keeping me occupied at the moment, and it's an indoor thing, and I can do it anywhere. So hopefully it's going to help.
Yeah, and I
Yes.
think that's one of the things coming out of COVID, isn't it? About in terms of virtual classes, and people can do it at home, anywhere, anytime, in their own space, just to get that exercise in,
Yeah.
which is really great. And what are some of the benefits for people, being a part of Ajax?
It creates, well, there's a few different benefits. I suppose it's a unique platform where architects, engineers, planners, and operators all come together, and there's best practice white papers. Once you log in, there's architectural drawings, so it's a lot of information sharing worldwide, which you don't get really from anyone. They also have a partnership with the IPC and the IOC. Sorry, yes. So and they have Tafisia, which is the Active Communities Global group as well. So they run a lot of different seminars. We have an integrated calendar now. So perhaps if you speak German and there's a German seminar, you can log into that and have a look at that as well. So, but there's all different languages that you can, and obviously English.
Yeah. And are you seeing that with like membership is increasing across Australia and New Zealand over, say the last 12 months?
Yeah, 100%. I'm loving it, to be honest. Like, it's just, when you you have a goal, and it's kind of, I think COVID kind of got in the way because we weren't allowed to do in-person events, and but now it's growing, a few members, up to 5 members each month, and we're creating a subcommittee for Australia and New Zealand, which is very exciting. So yeah, it's watch this space for next year, 2023, and then 2024 we're having a Southern Hemisphere IAX as part of the National Sports Convention down in Melbourne. So that's very exciting as well.
Yeah, great. And I think just that information sharing is so important, isn't it, across the globe? So, there's a lot of best practice out there, and it's learning from each other. And just back to Myrtha, and I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but we're obviously from New South Wales, based in New South Wales. Is there any Myrtha pools that are up and coming in New South Wales that are getting constructed? Yep.
Yeah. So Parramatta Aquatic Centre is being constructed as we speak. That's probably not due for completion until next year, but Temora is currently being constructed as well. We've but all across Australia and New Zealand, we're doing constructing pools at the moment, which is great to see. We're doing learn to swim pools as well in Brookvale and Casula. So that's probably New South Wales at the moment. We've in the past we've done Blaney, we've done what's the one in the city of Sydney?
Prince Alfred Park Pool.
Prince Alfred. So we've done that one. Yeah, we're hopefully getting a few more, but we're doing Mount Gambier down in South Australia. We've done quite a few sport recovery pools as well for the AFL groups and things like that. So I suppose that in that way, Myrtha is also helping with the sports industry as well. We do health and wellness as well. So there's that aspect as well.
Yeah, great. And I loved your 360 swim program there to support people that might need it most in terms of swimming lessons, because it's so important, particularly coming out of COVID, isn't it? With the crisis in terms of swimming lessons and people that there's been a lot missed. And I remember some research of it around swimming pools in Australia, whereas in Europe they have town squares where everybody gathers and connects, and there's real community. But in Australia, it's like in our town centres we have swimming pools, don't we?
Yeah.
So they're so important.
I think I had a bit of a chuckle to myself because obviously you know that I was in a planning position for a few years, but I visited the Roman baths and I heard the tour guide say, and this is where the massage parlor was, and this is where they would just sun themselves and talk and around the Roman baths. So it's not new. But yeah, it's our current trends were happening in the Roman baths era. So
I love that. Not heard that before. So, and we'll just move it on to chronic disease. And as you know, 1 in 2 Australians have got a chronic disease, unfortunately, and it's getting worse. Health inequalities are widening. Physical activity levels are not getting any better. So if we look at it as from a systems point of view, if you could nudge one part of the system to improve the well-being of Australians, what would that be for you?
100% to get them more physically active, and having, I suppose, an integration. I've had relatives that have had depression, and I feel that they're too, like some of the people were too quick to provide medication as opposed to. So now it's good that I think it's officially on the register list that they do recommend exercise for that from a mental health perspective. But look, speaking of remote areas, my son and his group of friends in their own households spent all weekend watching the Koori Cup. And I just thought that's fantastic. So all ages, all the Indigenous players from all over Australia are competing against each other. It was brilliant to watch.
Yeah. And back, I was just firstly to touch on the depression piece there. So you were saying that now it's prescribed, is it? If somebody's in their mental health recovery or suffering from depression, that they get prescribed physical activity?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was listening to, I think it's the Belgravia Foundation.
Yes,
And
yeah.
so Jeff was
Jeff
talking about
Oakley,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, so they were talking about it, and it was like a heart moment. I'm like, yes.
Yeah. Isn't that wonderful? Instead of just throwing people a pill and saying, take that and you'll get better. So that's really cool. And the Curry Cup. So tell me a little bit more about that. What in terms of
Look,
the
I
event?
didn't, to be completely honest, I didn't know too much about it, but I thought, obviously it was the grand final weekend for NRL.
Yeah,
I thought, what are you watching? So it was very, like our household, it was nonstop all weekend. But so my daughter was very excited to watch the women's
NRL.
NRLW. And then my son was watching something. I'm like, what are you watching? And he's like, oh, this is the Curry Cup. And so he just explained like different teams, local teams from out, from
Yeah.
across Australia were competing against each other. I think it was in Nowra. So
Yeah.
might have been New South Wales.
That's great. That's really cool. And speaking of grand final, so I know you're a Parramatta supporter, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm not allowed to say that though. We're a Dragons household. That yes. Yeah.
So licking your wounds a little bit after the weekend.
Yeah. Look, glad we got to the grand finals. But
Yeah.
we got a couple of tries in the end.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Stay positive. It's been a great season for you. So,
Yeah.
but there can only be one winner, unfortunately. And in terms of all the work that you do, Bet, so obviously you're a mum and you got a sporting blog and you do stuff with the International Association for Sports and Leisure Facilities and Myrtha. And a whole host of other things, because I know you're very active within the recreation and leisure industry. But where do you see yourself personally in the system, and how do you contribute and influence it?
Yeah, look, you're right. I am on a couple of boards, and I've just started on the West's cricket board as well. So, which is good. I mean, I my whole athletics career was pretty much out of Lidcombe, Wyatt Park. So going back to the western suburbs days. So giving back. But look, as I said, I've had people say, why aren't you making any money out of Sporting Mum? And it's just a way for me to really reach out to different people. And I think like the last one was, life is ugly. There's going to be good and bad in what you do, and you've just got to stick to one day at a time, and stick to the routine, just like you do with recovery. I'm coming back from a sports injury. So that in that perspective, I'm pretty much offering advice, or maybe not offering advice, but giving the morals to stories, and how sport mirrors life, and how you can maybe deal and cope with things, and that you're not alone with what you're going through, like other people go through it. I think from a not like a volunteer perspective, working on different boards, and trying to organize events and awareness, like creating awareness of the inequalities. So one of our first IAX events this year was, and unfortunately you had COVID, did you? I think, was all about inclusion, and we had all the different sports groups and inclusive groups there, and it was just really great to listen to the different aspects, and how, from a planning perspective, because we had architects there as well, like what they should be looking for. We had the transgender people saying that they feel uncomfortable going into the disabled toilets because they're not disabled, and they feel like they get being judged, or they need to be really quick, but they didn't feel comfortable in the other amenities that were provided. I'm a netballer. I went into when I was breastfeeding Emily, I was quite shy, and I went into the toilets to breastfeed, but they didn't have any breastfeeding, or they didn't have any mum's change rooms, or they didn't have any nappy changes, which you think, being a female dominated sport, that is just a simple thing that they would consider to do that. So I think we really need to go next level when we're talking about inclusion. And then personally, I've always tried to encourage my kids to step outside their comfort zones, particularly when it comes to sport. And so I'll encourage them. I've made my daughter do a couple of different triathlons with me. I've made my son do like 10K runs. But it's funny because at the time they're like, oh, Mum, you're so bad. But then afterwards I see, like, I even saw my son going for a 5K run this morning. So he's almost 16 and a lot faster than me these days, but high-fived me on the way back. And so I see, you have to model if you can, and then the children actually pick up more than what you think, especially teenagers.
Well, it sounds like you've rubbed off on your son in particular if he's going out and doing a run on his own. But I'd like to just go back to that storytelling in terms of your blog, because I think it's such a powerful way, isn't it, to get messages across. And I think we've kind of lost the art of that somehow. And it's very, if we look back to the Indigenous and Torres Strait Islanders in terms of that storytelling and sharing of knowledge, it's so important. And yeah, I think your Sport and Mum blog's fantastic, and I've had a chuckle when I've been reading it from time to time.
Yeah.
So definitely keep that up. Yeah.
I had Martina Navratilova comment on one of them.
Wow.
And I thought, wow.
Talk about a name drop.
I know, there you go. It was about I can't remember what it was, something about there's no discrimination in sport. Like, it's, once you're on the field or when you're on the court, it's just you and your opposition. So yeah, in that regard.
Yeah.
But I mean, I must admit, being involved as a mum with some of the grassroots sports, I think there's a lot that we can be doing for it. I mean, it breaks my heart. My kids did one season of Little Athletics and said, no, never again, because they were waiting around for a long time, and we went from 7:30 in the morning to like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So there's little things I think we can do from a sports perspective to make it more inclusive and get more people active.
Yeah.
And keep them in the sports. Like, I'm lucky, both my kids are still doing sport and they're teenagers, the typical dropout age. And my daughter loves it so much, she wants to be the next NRL or the first NRL women's coach. So we'll see if that happens, whether she gets there. But yeah, so it's definitely something that we all need to do as a community. And you're right about the social aspect. I have a lot of friends for over 2 decades now that I played netball with, or I did, soccer with, and we've stayed friends, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, them ties. It's incredible, isn't it? Sport gives us so much. It's not just about, the health benefits, is it? That other social aspect, as you say, is really, really important, just as important. And particularly with social isolation, these days being a big problem. So that's a fantastic conversation, Yvette. It's been lovely to hear a bit more about you and go under the hood a little bit in terms of your experiences and the work that you're doing. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention?
Wow, that's a tricky one. I wasn't expecting that one. Look, I think I've obviously followed you right from the start, and the quality of the people that you get on for these interviews. So I was super stoked that you asked me to be interviewed. Look, I think, as I mentioned before, there's probably a couple of things from an sports administration perspective that we need to consider. The other thing that's coming through is informal sports. So I think watch this space in regards to physical activity and what's happening there. So yeah, the online stuff from me personally is a game changer. Because I'm not very good with technology, but there you go. Here I am using it.
Me too.
And yeah, and is the I suppose the turn up and play, or not even turn up, play and pay. Like, some of them are just, we've got touch football sides that just turn up. We've got soccer sides that just turn up at the local parks and have their little groups and gatherings. So I think that's great. And I suppose the inclusion aspect of having multicultural days and things like that at different sports clubs would help. And that's something that we're trying to do at West's Cricket as well. So there's a large Indian and Pakistani perspective there. So hopefully I get to get them involved and have good integration and acceptance, and I suppose inclusion in all the sides. So.
Yeah, fantastic. And yeah, I couldn't agree more with the non-traditional sports. There's definitely a shift there, isn't there, for people getting in? And when we just have to meet people where they're at and just get them moving, you know. So it's not just all about sport, is it? But
No, no. I mean, I think there's a whole range of things that, I mean, one of my family members was, as I said, depressed but overweight, so type 2, so obese, type 2 on the, you know, type 2 diabetes, blood pressure problems. Soon as physical activity and diet came in, there's not one thing that is wrong with that person now, like in regards to diseases and things that could have potentially ended their life. So it's life saving with what you're trying to do. So how we can integrate it, I'm happy to help in any way that I can.
yeah, love it. Awesome. Well, Yvette, thank you so much. And yeah, wishing you well for the rest of the year, and I hope to catch up with you in person soon.
Likewise. Thanks, David.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.
Stop.